Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun, and this is our reaction and review for Sunny, Season 1, Episode 4 on Apple TV Plus. Did anyone else watch the start of this episode when it turns out this is Susie's dream, but we start seeing like Masa run around and chase down this guy? I was just sitting here being like, is Masa Jason Bourne? Like, what's actually going on here? It actually took me a minute or two before I realized that this was probably a dream. It wasn't until he actually showed up with Hime and then they started, doing what they were doing. I was like, okay, all right, this is all in Susie's head. But they really threw me for a loop at the start of this.
Yeah, they've done a really good job with that where it comes to Susie and how she's feeling about it. Because I think we've all kind of been there when somebody's betrayed us and we're just running through our heads all the
Hmm.
worst scenarios, all these different things it could be, couldn't be, what's happening. So to actually have that going on in the show where Susie is thinking the worst and we're seeing it happen sort of in her mind, but we're watching it all. Yeah, he's Jason Bourne
Yeah.
down, pulling out this, doing that, throwing this guy over here. Yeah, that moment when they were at the bar and it was like her hand was on Masa's hand. I was like, okay, it's obviously a dream, but I think we've all been there
Yeah.
where we're like, oh man, the worst case scenario is just running through our heads.
I have really complicated thoughts about this episode. Like, I'll say that from the get go because it is my least favorite of the four that we've seen so far. But it's interesting because I don't think that's a function necessarily of what the show is doing that's right or wrong. I think it comes down to more my own expectations for watching this show because what I think this show is best at is kind of going into this weird, quirky sort of Black Mirror direction that's
Mhm.
really geared a lot about technology and trying to figure out the dark manual. And, we may be getting there to all of this stuff in the end, but the more that we're sort of seeing of, okay, here's Hime, and here are these people that work with Hime's father. Here's an internal power struggle into this organization. Like that sort of stuff I've seen on a bunch of other shows. It's just like that's not as interesting to me, even if all these guys with their million tattoos are unique insofar as their appearance goes. It's just that's not what I'm watching the show for.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the crime and the family type stuff that's happening over on the other side. I'm more interested in the robots and what's
Yes.
going on with Masa and what's going on with Susie. I just love how future forward this show is with the technology and even like the earpiece that helps with the translation and stuff. But then there's still like this kind of 80s retro feel to
Yeah.
everything, but it's so future forward with the technology and stuff. It's just there's such a vibe on the show that I really like. But yeah, me too. This was my least favorite of the episode so far because there was such a focus on what's going on with this family and the hierarchy and who's going to be the next, person at the top of the crime pyramid. I just don't care.
No, we'll talk through all of that sort of stuff. What's interesting to us about Sunny, what's happening
Yeah.
there. Before we go forward, though, hit that subscribe button. We are here discussing this show all season long. It is a really unique watch. It's one of the most
Mhm.
interesting concepts we've had, and we're enjoying talking a lot about it. So be sure you hit that like button as well.
Also, follow us over on our Patreon. We are covering other shows over there that we are not covering here.
Hmm.
If you're looking for more crime TV, we're covering Criminal Minds over there. We're
Yeah.
covering Evil over
Hmm.
there. So if you want to join our Patreon and get weekly reviews on those shows, we'll have a link for you down below. Thank you to everybody who is supporting us
Hmm.
through Patreon.
Thank you guys so much. We really, really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Okay, let's talk about the most interesting stuff from this episode first and foremost, because a
Mhm.
lot of it is Sunny seems to have a certain capability here when it comes to being able to turn off the happy, more chipper part of her brain in
Yeah.
a way. And if she wants to do some more dastardly things, there's a way in which that happens. Like all that stuff, I think, with her and Noriko in this episode was really, really interesting because of that.
Okay, this is my tinfoil hat
Okay.
theory is that Sunny has the dark manual and it's hidden inside of her and she doesn't know it. Like, I think she knows some stuff. We saw
Mhm.
her open herself up and sort of take out this piece and put it in her to be able to kind of turn off the I'm supposed to be good and now I can do some dastardly
Yeah.
stuff and be diabolical as well. But I think that the actual dark manual and all of that is hidden inside of her. Whether it's an actual physical thing like what she took out of herself, I don't think that's it. But I think maybe there's something else that's inside of her, or if it's just technology inside of her.
And I think this is probably what, because we've seen Suzie and Sunny be spied on. I
Yeah.
think this is what a lot of people are probably trying to figure out is that, what does Sunny actually know and what is Sunny capable of? And I think if they were able to sort of see publicly that Sunny can do something kind of like what she did with Noriko, then I
Yep.
think it becomes a grade A problem. And then I think everybody's going to start to realize that there's something that is buried within Sunny, even if Sunny doesn't fully understand all of it. But I think that the functionality of all of that and trying to uncover what secrets Masa hid and why he hid them, like that is by far the most interesting part of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will say, even the foundation to how we got there with Sunny and Noriko, like this part of it, before we got too far down like the crime rabbit hole with the family of okay, we've gone to I don't even know the proper name to call this because this is a very Japanese thing where you have the baths and the steam
Hmm.
room. And from a cultural standpoint, I really like that they did something like this and they
Hmm.
connected it to Masa and how we ultimately get to this point where Sunny is trying to go rogue, trying to find a way to, convince whether it's the sauna owner or then trying to find a way to convince Nariko. Like all of that, I think was really, really fun.
Yeah, it was. But she finally does get some kind of information about this four circle five. Someone's like, oh, maybe it could be about the flight, which is 405. But it's something that Susie hears at the bathhouse as well, where she hears the family talking
Yeah.
about it as well, where she's kind of like, well, what is that? I don't really understand. She doesn't have all the information. But later when Sunny is like, "Oh yeah, this could be the flight number." They're speaking to someone who's like an investor or an insurance person who's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to make sure that all the money comes to you and that it's all about this flight and what's going on here." It's like, how is this flight
Hmm.
connected to Hime and the family and what's going on? Because if they're talking about it and so's the insurance people, and this flight is sort of how Masa and the son disappeared, how is this all really connected? Is it about the flight?
I think it must be about, I want to say it's all about money. Because if you have this sort of family business, what do you care about more than anything else? You care about money. And
Yeah.
there might be some sort of way here where one of the big reveals that happens in this episode is that Masa's father is apparently not who it was once thought to be. And that that's something that has come out here through what Sunny was able to achieve with Noriko.
Yeah.
Now, does this then mean that, okay, there was some sort of like scheme that was pulled off here that if something happens to Masa, all of this money can be funneled elsewhere? But then that question then becomes, okay, well, how much money did Masa really have? Like, is this because it's not as though we're seeing him and Susie live the most lavish life like imaginable. I can't imagine it's solely about him, but at the same time, if there was some sort of insurance policy with him, is there something like that with some other people maybe that were on the flight?
Well, that's the thing, is that is the real father connected to Hime and that family? And Noriko is also connected to that family because she had Masa, and that maybe that's how this is all really connected. And that it's not like we have this other story that's going on with Susie and Sunny and Noriko and the father. And then over here is this whole like family and crime and whatever else that's not really connected outside of wanting the manual. It feels more interesting if
Mm,
it's all actually personally connected and it's not just about money.
I hope it's not just about money. That's the first thing my brain goes to. But I'm going to present now the biggest tinfoil hat theory I've had for all of Sunny so
All
far
right.
this season.
All right.
Okay. What if Masa is behind what happened with the plane crashing? what if this entire
That's
thing
so dark.
is okay? He's alive. It's okay.
Yeah, but all those people are dead.
Okay, this is very dark. But what if he is still behind this to some degree? Maybe he didn't intend for it to go as terribly as it did. But what if this was just a big elaborate cover up so that he could be able to take his son, hide somewhere else because he knows that this is all ultimately about the Dark Manual. And they think that he knows something about the Dark Manual. And this was his way to make sure that nothing gets found out about it and that Suzie can find the truth and maybe take these people down before they're able to do something bad about it. It's really out there, but it just feels like it all has to come down to that. And maybe the Dark Manual is how these people make their money, and maybe that's how it's still connected to money. But it just feels like for a family business like this, money alone isn't going to be it, but how is something else tied to money that they would want?
Well, yeah, because it seems like Hime's father is saying, listen, if you want my spot, I haven't said who's going to be taking my spot.
Yeah.
I'm like on my way out. Your cousin Jin is very likely going to be taking the spot. He's been my number one, like by my side this whole time. But if you want that spot, I really have to convince people that you are going to get that spot. So get me the Dark Manual. Like, this is really what it's about for her. But why does he want the Dark Manual? Like, it seems like the Dark Manual already, there's little snippets of the code here and there. We
Yeah.
know that, other people have used it to be able to get other little things. The counselor was brought up again in this episode at the bathhouse, where it seems like this death was, of course, on purpose, that there was some kind of robot that was involved in this with the Dark Manual or a little
Yeah.
code of it. Clearly, this Dark Manual is what everybody wants to get their hands on, and it feels very much like Masa and his disappearance is to be able to hide it. And again,
Yeah.
I think that the Dark Manual is inside Sunny. She just doesn't know it. That way, if somebody captures her or tries to get it out of her, she honestly can't give it because she doesn't know she has it.
And this is why I continue to struggle so much with what happened to this plane, because I don't think it's a coincidence that this happened. Like, a show that's sort of this thought out is not going to have a coincidental plane crash that only Masa and potentially his son have survived. Like,
Well, what if the plane crash never happened and everybody's in on it? You know what I mean? Like, what if
oh,
it's just like a huge, huge cover up? The plane never crashed. Nobody actually died. And that Masa's organization on the other side is way bigger than anybody thinks that it is. And it's just a huge cover up. So everybody thinks that these people are gone and dead, but really they're not. And everybody's in hiding.
I like your idea better because because my idea is really dark. I like the idea better where it's like,
That's okay.
okay,
It can be dark. It's a dark show.
I don't need it to be that dark.
Okay.
I like the idea that Masa is still in part of orchestrating this whole thing, because I do think that if you are this, this family over here who's doing all this bad stuff, it's like, are you guys going to be behind this plane crash? Because how can you then guarantee that you're going to have Masa and Zen be alive on
Yeah.
the other side of it? To me, it just doesn't make any sense that they would be behind this if their whole objective is we need to get the Dark Manual and Masa knows about the Dark Manual. Like, to me, it's more interesting, this idea of, okay, Masa knows that he's in danger. He has to figure out a way to protect himself and protect Zen at the same time, but also find a way to leave something behind so that the truth can eventually get out. If this entire thing is some sort of elaborate orchestration and all of these people are alive, like that, I think makes more sense for the humanity of Masa as a character. He would have to be a pretty bad dude if he's willing to let all these other people die.
Yeah, but I mean, people have said at Imatech that he is very difficult to be around. He's very difficult to work with, and that he's not a nice guy. So there could be this other side of it. I mean, even if you're faking something like that, all the family members think that it's real
Yeah.
anyways. So it's still a pretty dark thing to do. But I think the real key to all of it, besides Sunny, is Noriko. I think she knows a good amount of everything that's happening. I think she's put together this memorial and all this.
Mhm.
I think she's fully aware that Masa's still out there. And I think that she's been communicating with him through the video games. I've been saying that since the beginning. I really think she has a major hand in this and has helped him disappear.
I think my biggest question for her then is just, okay, well, what's your end game in all of
Protection.
this? Yeah, are you you're protecting Masa, but then
Yeah.
is the expectation that, you know, Masa is going to be off somewhere really helping to sort of get everything out in the open, or if you are Noriko and you're trying to protect Masa and you know that Suzie has Sunny and that the key may be with Sunny, like you should help Suzie more than to try to make some good things happen.
It depends on what the motivation is, right?
Yeah,
Like, is if Masa wants the truth out there and wants Suzie to be able to figure it out by giving her Sunny, that's one thing.
yeah,
But if Noriko has a different motivation here where she just wants her grandson and son to be safe somewhere, and if that means she never sees him again, and that's fine, that's the way it has to be. As long as they're alive and they're safe somewhere, she's willing to do whatever she can. But if by helping Suzie sort of bring the dark manual out, that doesn't protect Masa or her grandson in any which way, so she's not going to help.
I think the other big takeaway from this episode, and man, does this show allow us to just sort of like go in all these different
I
directions.
know.
Okay,
I think that that father is going to be the key player of
yeah,
whether he's part of, Hime and that organization, that family, or not.
whatever it is about this dark manual, it's clearly not easy to access, and it's clearly not something you can access with any homebot. Because you know, Hime and that group, they have a homebot. We saw it in this episode, sort of just like doing odd tasks for them. So it's like, okay, clearly you guys haven't been able to figure this out with your own homebot here. So there's something obviously very, very special about Sunny, and you know that. It's just probably one of these sort of situations where you may not be able to figure it out for yourself. It may have to be Suzie who figures it out, because if this robot was made with Suzie in mind, like only she's going to be able to then do it. And
Hmm.
Sunny has already been able to find out some information about this father that you just mentioned, who's probably the key to everything. So I think now what I'm hoping happens is that rather than focus more on, you know, tattooed people doing things to each other and taking each other out in the
Yep.
bathhouse, I hope that this next episode becomes sort of this journey for Suzie and Sunny to track this person down, and maybe in the process of this they can figure out some more information. But beyond all that, maybe they can actually forge some sort of connection with this guy if he's not like super nefarious and he's been hid for what other reason it may be. Like maybe he is sort of an architect behind the dark manual or some of this, and Moss has really just been picking up his work.
Yeah, it could very well be. I mean, that's another question too. Does Masa know that his father isn't his real father and that it's actually this other person? I mean, he's been being told one thing by Noriko, but that doesn't mean that that's what he actually knows. Does he know the truth?
This stuff is the best stuff that Sunny has to offer. And I think there's a lot of moments in this episode where it does sort of shine through. And it's just always fun to just see Suzie and Sunny interact in general. I just think that they went overboard with the tattooed people and as much time as we spent with just them in the bathhouse, because this is not a long show. These episodes are like 32, 35 minutes,
Yep.
something like that. And if we're spending 8 or 10 minutes hearing about the hierarchy of this organization and who's going to be in charge, and it feels like we're not getting the time necessary with the characters who we really are watching for. So that's just my fear coming out of this, is that maybe some people were a little bit turned off by this and now they're sort of feeling, okay, is this show what I thought it was going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel really positive about the show, and this episode wasn't the greatest, but I'm not really into sort of like family and like crime and like that type of organization is just it's not for me. I've never really had that much interest in that. And I know lots of people do though. So
Yeah.
they may be very interested in that part of the show. But right now it really feels like with this episode that there are two different shows that are going on at the same time. There's Suzie, Sunny, the Dark Manual and everything going on over here, and then there's this hierarchy battle going on with this family that I don't really care about. With it Hime really looking into like getting the dark manual to be able to move herself up, yes, that ties into everything else. But like everything at the bathhouse and all of this other stuff, anything that doesn't have to do with the dark manual and Sunny and Masa, I'm not as interested in.
That's just something that the show has to figure out. And hopefully we'll come into episode 5. It'll all make a little bit more sense, or at least that's what I'm hoping for. But I'm
Yeah.
still having fun with Susie and Sunny in that particular journey because that's so unique about this show. And we'll see where things go from here.
Yeah.
But be sure to hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any of our other discussions on Sunny coming up. Also, you can support us further by joining our Patreon. I have a link in the description. As Jess said earlier, we have some exclusive coverage of shows over there like Criminal Minds, like Evil, that are very much in this sort of crime TV mystery world. Thank you guys for your support so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you here next time.